A long time ago, before paved roads sliced through forests and skyscrapers challenged the sky, the American continent was alive, breathing, dreaming, and listening. It was not a land to be owned, but a living mosaic of tribes and nations, each pulse of life bound to the rhythm of the earth itself. These were people who walked in harmony with creation, who saw divinity not in distant heavens but in every river's shimmer, every tree's whisper, every animal's gaze. Together they wove a vast spiritual tapestry, shimmering with gratitude and wonder. For thousands of years their civilizations thrived, not through dominance but through balance. They built societies that reflected the architecture of nature itself, fluid, interwoven, resilient. They looked to the stars not merely for direction but for conversation, reading the constellations as messages from ancestors. They listened to the winds as though they carried truth, and sang not just for joy but for the very act of existing, every melody a prayer of belonging. They lived in a world where the sacred was not hidden inside temples. It was the ground beneath their feet. Every dawn was a ceremony, every step a communion. But with the coming of the colonizers, this delicate harmony began to fracture. Centuries of wisdom, songs, languages, and rituals were silenced or burned, leaving behind only echoes. And yet even now, if you walk deep enough into the wild places, you can still feel it. The hum of something ancient, something alive, waiting to be remembered. This is the story of that wisdom, the wisdom time tried to bury yet could never destroy. The wisdom that still lingers in the soil, in the wind, and in the hearts of those who remember. Before any border was drawn by foreign hands, the continent was one endless expanse of life. From the icy breath of the north to the humid jungles of the south, hundreds of nations flourished. Each spoke a different language, held different myths, yet all shared the same sacred understanding. The earth belongs to no one because all belong to the earth. In the wide plains of the north, the Lakota followed the migrations of the bison, a creature not merely hunted but honored. The bison was teacher, provider, and mirror of the cosmic order. To take its life was to enter into a sacred covenant, a promise of respect and gratitude. Nothing was wasted because every fragment of its being carried spirit. Far to the west, the ancestral Puebloans carved homes from stone, cities that grew like extensions of the mountains themselves. Their dwellings and cliffs were not built on the land, but of the land. Sun-baked and eternal in conversation with sky and soil. To the north, the Haudenosaunee, known to many as the Iroquois Confederacy, built one of the most remarkable societies in human history. They united 6 great nations under a single tree of peace, governed not by weapons but by words. In their councils, every decision was weighed not only for its present effect but for its echoes across the next 7 generations. Such was their wisdom, that true leadership is not about power but about guardianship of the earth, of the people, and of time itself. Further south, in the emerald lungs of the tropics, the Tupi-Guarani sang of gods who lived inside rivers and mountains. To them, every stone had memory and every current carried stories. The forest was not background, it was family. Every leaf a syllable in the endless conversation between humanity and creation. And to the far north, the Inuit thrived where others would perish, masters of ice, wind, and silence. They read the snow the way others read scripture, and in its patterns found both guidance and grace. To survive in such a world required not domination, but harmony. They adapted not by bending nature, but by moving with it. Across this vast continent, networks of trade and storytelling wove distant tribes into communion. Shells from the Atlantic were found in the Great Plains. Obsidian from the west shimmered in the hands of eastern hunters. Goods traveled, but so did wisdom. Myths evolved, stories merged, and through them the great truth of interconnection endured, that humanity is but one thread in the great web of life. To these peoples the earth was not wilderness. It was sacred geometry, it was a living mind. The rivers were its veins, the mountains its bones, the wind its breath. To live well was to remain in rhythm with that pulse. Break it and chaos would follow. For to harm the earth was to harm oneself. Their societies were not primitive, as history once claimed, but profoundly advanced in ways modern civilization still struggles to understand. Theirs was an intelligence of the heart, a wisdom that measured wealth not by accumulation but by balance. Every structure they built, every ritual they performed reflected this cosmic symmetry. Among the Lakota, councils were gatherings of voices, not hierarchies of power but circles of respect. Each warrior, elder, and healer had a say. Great decisions, whether of war, hunting, or migration, were made through deep listening, not force. To them, consensus was not weakness. It was sacred alignment. In Hopi villages, spiritual life and governance were inseparable. The elders, keepers of both story and sign, interpreted dreams, clouds, and seasons before guiding decisions. Their power was quiet, earned not through command, but through communion with the invisible. To lead was to listen, not just to people, but to the land itself. Farther west, along the rugged coastline, the Haida and Tlingit shaped entire social systems around generosity. Their potlatch ceremonies transformed wealth into gratitude, redistributing abundance as a ritual of balance. Status came not from possession but from the courage to give. They understood a truth modern society has forgotten, that true prosperity flows only when it circulates. Across all tribes, one principle pulsed beneath everything: interdependence. No being stood alone. No tree grew in isolation. Every breath, every heartbeat, every act rippled outward. In this understanding lay their strength. A civilization built not on walls and empires, but on relationship, humility, and sacred reciprocity. Their world was not untouched paradise. It was a living dialogue between chaos and order, spirit and matter. But within that dialogue, they found grace. They knew that to walk gently upon the earth was not just survival, it was enlightenment. And then across the horizon sails appeared, white and foreign, carrying the scent of iron and conquest. The silence of the ancient world began to tremble. What came next would unravel millennia of harmony. But even as darkness spread, the memory of the sacred refused to die. It hid in stories, in stones, in the heartbeat of the land, waiting for us to listen again. When the first ships appeared on the horizon, they looked like pale ghosts drifting out of the mist, unfamiliar, shimmering, and filled with omens. To the native peoples, the sea had always been a threshold between worlds, a mirror reflecting both mystery and destiny. But no one could foresee that this arrival would not bring dialogue, but rupture. What came ashore was not merely a new people, but a new way of thinking, one that sought to possess what was once only honored. The colonizers came with steel and scripture, drawing invisible lines across living lands, carving boundaries through sacred ground. To them, the earth was an object, not a relative, something to be divided, mined, and named. Forests that had stood as temples were felled, rivers were chained, and the languages that once carried the music of the world were silenced by foreign tongues. Yet even under the weight of conquest, the heartbeat of the old wisdom endured. You can still feel it, in the wind that refuses to forget, in the drumbeats that echo through time. Before that storm of change, the continent had thrived as a harmony of diverse systems of life. The Iroquois Confederacy had already mastered a democratic structure rooted in cooperation, a living model of balance between individual will and collective good. Their Grand Council, a circle of leaders representing each nation, made decisions not in haste, but through ritual, dialogue, and deep reflection. Every word spoken was a thread in a larger tapestry, every silence a prayer for future generations. They called it the Great Law of Peace, a principle that guided justice not through punishment, but through restoration. In the Southwest, the Hopi lived their governance through spirit and ceremony. Each village an independent heartbeat, guided by elders who read the signs of nature, the movement of clouds, the pattern of stars, the voice of the wind at dusk. No leader ruled by command, they led by listening. It was believed that wisdom could not be forced. It had to flow like water, finding its own path through patience and respect. Power in their understanding was a sacred duty, not a privilege. In the heart of the plains, the Lakota lived in bands that moved with the rhythm of the land. Their leadership was chosen not by bloodline, but by merit, the courage of a warrior, the compassion of a healer, the foresight of a dreamer. When they gathered to decide on great matters, war, migration, ceremony, no voice was ignored. Every member was part of the conversation. To them, leadership was a circle, not a throne. Farther north, along the mist-shrouded coastlines, the Haida and Tlingit cultivated a different kind of structure, one rooted in story and lineage. Their clans were more than families. They were living mythologies, each tied to an ancestral origin, a spirit, an animal guide. Totems rose from cedar forests like memory made visible, carved with eagles, ravens, bears, and salmon. Each a symbol of heritage, each a spiritual covenant. And when they celebrated with great potlatches, they gave away what others might hoard, for they knew that generosity strengthens what greed destroys. To give was not loss, it was renewal. Through all these diverse forms of life, a common pulse could be felt: harmony, interdependence, and reverence for the unseen. They believed every decision, no matter how small, carried a spiritual consequence. To plant a seed was to make a promise. To take a life, even of an animal, required ceremony and gratitude. Theirs was a law deeper than human. It was the law of balance. Spirituality was not an act to be performed. It was a way of breathing. Among the Lakota, the Great Spirit, Wakan Tanka, the Great Mystery, was not a god above, but the living sum of all things. The wind, the sun, the bison, the river, each a fragment of the sacred whole. During the sun dance, men and women offered their pain and endurance as prayers, their bodies swaying to the rhythm of drums, connecting their mortal breath to the eternal order of the cosmos. It was not about suffering, it was about remembering that every heartbeat was borrowed from creation itself. For the Hopi, the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds was paper thin. Through the sacred dances of the Kachinas, ancestral spirits descended to bless the people, bringing rain and renewal. Every mask, every movement, every song was an offering, a dialogue with forces beyond sight. They saw themselves not as masters of the land, but as its caretakers, bound by covenant to protect the fragile harmony between worlds. Deep within the Amazonian forests, the Tupi-Guarani sought the land without evil, a vision of spiritual purity and balance. Through songs, dances, and sacred plant medicines, they journeyed into states of consciousness where they could commune with gods, heal the sick, and restore order between man and nature. Their ceremonies were not escapes from reality. They were returns to it, reminders that divinity lives within every leaf and breath. And in the far northwest, art itself became prayer. The Haida's totem poles stood like sermons of wood and color, towering declarations of gratitude and belonging. Each carved figure, each spiral of line and curve was both memory and invocation, a bridge between ancestors and descendants. To look upon them was to witness the soul of a people who never forgot that beauty itself is sacred. To all these nations, the earth was a living being, and every act was an act of relationship. Before the hunt, a fisherman would whisper thanks to the spirit of the salmon. Before planting, farmers would sing to the soil, asking it to receive the seed kindly. Even the simple act of lighting a fire carried ritual, a quiet acknowledgement of the forces that sustain life. Their shamans, the healers and dreamwalkers, served as bridges between the worlds. Through chants, smoke, and sacred herbs, they brought balance where illness had broken it. For them, disease was not just of the body, but of the spirit, a disconnection from the web of life. Healing, therefore, was not a cure, it was a reunion. When harmony was restored, the world itself seemed to breathe easier. Theirs was a civilization that saw no separation between the spiritual and the material. Every sunrise, every birth, every storm was a lesson from the divine, and perhaps that is what we have forgotten. That life in its purest form is not a series of accidents, but an ongoing conversation between the human heart and the soul of the universe. Even now, as we look at the remnants of their villages, the petroglyphs carved into stone, the sacred songs passed in whispers, we are not merely studying history. We are listening to an older version of ourselves, a version that knew the secret we have lost, that everything, absolutely everything, is connected. The balance began to tremble when the colonizers came, not slowly, but like a storm without warning. What followed was not only the theft of land, but of memory. Sacred sites were desecrated, languages forbidden, and the spiritual pulse of a continent was forced into silence. Yet even as the fires of conquest consumed their villages and erased their names from maps, the ancestral flame did not die. It hid, deep within the stories whispered at night, within the songs that mothers sang to their children, within the ceremonies carried out in secret beneath the indifferent gaze of empire. Centuries passed, and still that wisdom endured. It transformed from spoken ritual to silent resilience, from open worship to coded remembrance. In the 19th century, governments attempted to erase entire cultures through boarding schools where children were stripped of their language, hair, and identity. "Kill the Indian, save the man," they said. But in the quiet corners of those institutions, some children still hummed the songs of their grandmothers. They carved secret symbols on walls, spoke their words in whispers, and kept the sacred alive. Among the Lakota, the sun dance continued, outlawed, condemned, but never extinguished. Men and women gathered in hidden places to dance beneath the vast sky, to pierce their flesh as offerings of renewal, to remind the world that even pain can be prayer. Each year they returned like the sun itself, unbroken. For them, the ceremony was more than survival. It was a declaration that the spirit of their people could never be legislated out of existence. The Hopi, too, kept their prophecies alive, visions warning of what would come when humanity forgot its place in the web of creation. They spoke of a time when rivers would run dry, when the air would choke with smoke, when greed would devour the sacred balance. They said that when the world forgets to listen to the earth will remind us, not through anger, but through awakening. And perhaps that time is now, because the wisdom of the ancestors is not lost. It still moves beneath the noise of modernity, beneath the hum of machines and the glare of screens. It calls to us in quiet moments, when the wind moves through the trees, when we stand before a mountain and feel small, when we remember even for a second that we are part of something infinitely larger than ourselves. The philosophy of interdependence, that ancient core of native understanding, carries a truth humanity desperately needs to remember. They saw the world not as a collection of resources, but as a living web of relationships. The Lakota called it Mitakuye Oyasing, all my relations. It was not just a phrase, it was a worldview. It meant that the rock beneath your feet, the bird above your head, the stranger beside you, all are kin. To harm one is to harm the whole. Their lives were built on that principle. Hunters thanked the spirit of the deer. Farmers sang to the corn. Water was not a commodity, but a relative. Every act, no matter how mundane, was an offering of gratitude. They did not pray for dominion, they prayed for balance. And in that balance, they found a sense of belonging that we, in our towers and cities, have almost forgotten. They also understood time differently, not as a line, but as a circle. The past was not gone. It lived within them. The future was not unknown. It was already speaking through the breath of the present. Every decision they made carried weight not only for themselves, but for those who had yet to be born. The Haudenosaunee taught that every choice must be made with consideration for the next 7 generations. A vision of responsibility so profound it humbles the arrogance of modern progress. They believed the dead were never truly gone. They walked among the living in dreams, in the whisper of flames, in the rustle of leaves. To live well was to honor that unseen company. To live carelessly was to break the chain that held the universe together. Even now, across the Americas, descendants of those ancient nations rise to reclaim their voice. They speak the old languages again. They revive ceremonies once forbidden. They walk the same trails their ancestors walked, not in sorrow, but in defiance and devotion. They know that the earth is not silent. Only we have forgotten how to listen. The wisdom of these peoples is not a relic, it is a compass, pointing us back to what truly matters. It reminds us that progress without reverence leads to ruin, that knowledge without humility is blindness. In an age where the planet cries beneath our weight, perhaps the old voices still have the answers we need. The Hopi say we are living in the fourth world, an era born from the ashes of the last, destined to test humanity's capacity to remember. They say that when the earth is suffering, the people of all colors will come together to restore harmony. The red, the white, the black, the yellow. 4 directions, 4 winds, 1 circle. And maybe that prophecy isn't just theirs. Maybe it's for all of us, because somewhere inside we all carry that same ancient knowing, that longing to reconnect with the sacred rhythm of existence. The wisdom of the ancestors is not distant history, it is a seed within us waiting to bloom again. So when you next walk through a forest, listen closely. The trees may be older than your name. The stones beneath your feet might remember stories your mind has forgotten. And when you feel the wind brush against your skin, know that it carries the breath of 1,000 generations, still whispering the same truth. We do not walk on the earth, we walk with her. And what we do to her, we do to ourselves. This is not just their story, it is ours. The story of how we lost our place in the sacred web, and how, if we choose to remember, we might yet find our way home.